Do we have an understanding of what the future needs and expects from us? Can we see the trajectories? Can we see how demographics and technology and society and politics, et cetera, are all merging to sort of see what the future is demanding and expecting from us? And then what are we each in a unique position to create and contribute to that future? We all have unique experiences, backgrounds, equities, resources, curiosities that we bring to this, and they're all tremendously important to being able to build what we move forward, and in many domains, right? Not just as a professional. People always come to these events so they can get better at whatever they need to do on Monday or Tuesday or the next day, right? We want to get better at mastering the work that we do. But you're also humans that are going through this. You're individually experiencing this. You're also witnessing it potentially as a parent or an uncle or a grandparent or a citizen in your community, right? These are things that are happening to all of us. And increasingly, we're being asked to think about this as a member of society. These questions are no longer constrained just to a small thing of our company or maybe even our neighborhood, but really big, big questions in how we interact with each other, which is part of what makes this shift so daunting. It's not just about speed and scope, but it's scale. Like we just keep getting it bigger and bigger. Mark Twain had a great quote when he said, "You can't trust your judgment if your imagination's out of focus." It is so important that we open our minds to what is possible. As part of this work, we were invited to, with one of those companies that Lori mentioned, to do strategic work, which went out to meet the companies and the communities and the ideas that were creating the future. We built this whole blueprint that showed these are all the strategies that we built our work around in the old economy. These are all the reasons that they no longer exist, and these are the new operating rules of the new economy. And it was sort of like this. I'm going to take you guys through 4 of them very quickly. None of them should be surprising, but when you see them stacked against each other, you start to again see what the future needs and expects from us a bit more clearly. So the first is the disruption mandate, right? So let's just get really simple. This did not exist before 2007. And you think about how it has changed your life. This means this did also not exist before 2007, right? 1 in 10 millennials would rather lose a finger than give up that smartphone, right? On that list was also like sex and friendship. You know, a little lower. But the fact is, this is a very important part of our lives. Why? Because it wasn't about the phone. It was about the whole world that that phone opened up. We didn't know what an app store was when this was created. We didn't know that all these things would exist. We didn't know that we'd be able to always be able to find where we are on a map. Right? Google Maps changed everything. You try to explain to a kid that you used to pull out a piece of paper and orient from D12 to B2 and have to write those directions down. Right? They can't fathom that that is possible. It's not just an easy thing. It was also, you are now always in the center of the map. It reoriented us to space and time. So again, and think about, again, all the value that was created from these companies, how many billions of dollars Snap is worth. So mind-boggling to me, right? So imagine, okay, if we just look at that as one example, now I invite you to think about what does the future look like when these technologies continue to advance and converge. Everything from AI to robotics, drones, 3D printing, nanotechnology, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, spurred on by a 5G network, more sensors in the Internet of Things or everything, huge advances in biotechnology and bioengineering, what I would call crypto coordination, which goes beyond blockchain and distributed web, but it's really this idea about how we use crypto to coordinate differently, changes in machine-human interfaces, and just when you think you might have a handle on some of that, comes along quantum computing that is going to make all of this happen faster. We're ushering what people describe as the 4th industrial age. And if you think about how fundamental it was when we had mechanization and steam power, we went to then assembly lines and mass producing things, the work that was ushered in through a computer and an automated society where we certainly created knowledge workers that didn't exist before, right, to where it is that we were heading now, and we are barely there. At South by Southwest, which is a conference in Austin in March, someone debuted a 3D printed house. Now, at the time, it took 24 hours and $10,000 to build that. They're trying to get down to 10 hours or 12 hours and $4,000 to build this house. And it is a stable little adobe house. It is really adorable, right? And it is not ephemeral emergency housing. It is really designed to do what? To address the crisis in affordable housing, both in the United States and in emerging countries. So now imagine that you're in the construction industry. Is this great news or scary news, right? If you're in the affordable housing world, it's awesome news. If you're in the sheetrock world, scary news. Now, you guys were probably aware of this, and I did see the stock performance. It went up and then it went down. But the thing that's important about why Kodak issued a crypto coin is not so much about whether or not they were able to hold on to this advantage, but they were trying to solve a really unique problem, which bodes, again, for the future. which is they're trying to figure out a way to be able to watermark a piece of content online, a photo, and be able then to attribute it to a photographer so that photographer can get paid, and that photographer will get paid in what we call a micro payment, or even a nano payment. You know, really, really, really small transactions. Here's what's happening in the world of AI, right? There's a company called Lemonade that is disrupting the insurance industry in a pretty interesting way. Right now, they're going after a very small part of it, which is the homeowner's insurance part, and they're really working to bring in customers that are underinsured as opposed to stealing it away. But I will tell you, large insurance companies are keeping their eye on this company, because why they're able to do what they do is it's artificial intelligence and chatbots meeting behavioral economics and trying to drive out all inefficiency in the insurance market so that I can get insured in 90 seconds and get a claim in 3 minutes. And at some point, that's going to become even faster. We're going to have an incident on a street, and we're going to have a sensor in a car, and we're going to have a sensor in a light post, and we're going to have information sent immediately, and boom, that's going to get resolved almost in real time. It's also really about a growing appreciation for curiosity. Brian Glazer, who is a movie producer, who's worked with Ron Howard, has taken someone outside of his industry to lunch every 2 weeks for 22 years. Right? That is a commitment to curiosity. You can imagine the connections he's able to make, the thoughts he has, his vision of what the future needs and expects, because it's been expanded by these conversations. He wrote a book about it. I've been touting this. I think it's the #1 thing we need to cultivate in our kids. But here's the interesting thing. Last month, the Harvard Business Review corroborated that with their business case for curiosity. But it's not just that we should tell people they should be curious. We need to incentivize curiosity. What they found in this HBR story is that often business leaders don't. If anything, they disincentivize it because they're afraid their employees are going to run amok. They'll be too curious and things will go crazy. I would argue that's a mindset shift that needs to happen immediately. We need people to be curious. We need people to be imaginative. We need to incentivize curiosity. Someone will describe it as we're developing a whole new level of intelligence. It's not just general intelligence and not just emotional intelligence, but it's now adaptability intelligence, or adaptability quotient, right? What does it mean to unlearn? What does it mean to learn to collaborate? What does it mean to look more broadly? What does it mean to be curious? Like, what are all the capacities that go into an AQ, and how do we develop them, and how do we learn them? So as we look at a future that has these technological advances at our fingertips that we get to build with, which I do think ushers in a particularly phenomenal future, and we think about, again, the cultural shifts that are driving some of the needs around that, I start to think about what are some really audacious things. I'm going to give you 3 quick examples and we'll close. So the first is a guy who invented the technology that became Venmo. It's called Braintree. He sold it to PayPal for $880 million. Now is investing his money in 2 things. One is the OS fund, Operating System Fund, in which they're seeking founders who seek beyond our lifetimes. They want to invest in scientists, entrepreneurs that are rewriting the operating systems of life. Is that in your portfolio? Right. Go check him out if you want to see the kinds of companies he's investing, which includes a chip in the brain called Kernel, in which we'll be then able to keep up with computers. He thinks that's the way we're going. We talk a lot about vertical farming and vertical agriculture. I think there'll be a tremendous advance in the future and be able to usher in all kinds of ways in which we'll have more affordable food and plant-based proteins and all kinds of things. But this, I think, is an extraordinary example. This is an architectural rendering. This isn't built yet. But in Shanghai, they're proposing a 100-hectare outdoor vertical farm that will improve air quality and provide food for 24 million residents. That's audacious, right? That's extraordinary. To change your strategy, first change how you think. This is how we think differently as we move into the future, right? We wonder versus resist. We navigate versus replicate. We contribute versus just extract. We go focus on connection versus autonomy. We practice a different form of leadering versus leadership. And we get to be audacious in what we create that changes the world.